Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it is my pleasure to be up on my feet in the House today, in a full House today. We have, looks like, some students who are joining us to provide my response to Budget 2019. And it's a pleasure, Honourable Speaker, I have to say, to represent Coquitlam-Millardville. My community is on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people and the Coquitlam First Nation. And Coquitlam is a traditional suburban community that's in the process of transformation, as investments in transit infrastructure have seen the Coquitlam Central area create a city centre with high densities, restaurants, shopping, and so much community activity. And it's a community that my husband and I have chosen to raise our family in because of the good schools, the good neighbourhoods, the community amenities, and certainly back in the early 90s when we arrived there because of its affordability. Now, I do want to speak to affordability because it's a very important issue to our government, it's an important issue to British Columbians. But before I do that, I want to just take a moment to thank the staff who work so hard on my behalf while we spend so much time here in Victoria, as well as traveling the province as a minister. So I want to thank my constituency assistants, Laura Gullickson, Linda Oscarson, and Erica Williams for the work that they do to make sure that the citizens of Coquitlam-Millardville are well served, understand what their government services are, and help to make sure that they are connected to their government. I also want to take a moment, Mr. Speaker, to thank my ministry staff because they spend so much time making sure that we're able to deliver on our government's priorities in the areas of municipal affairs and housing, as well as TransLink. So I want to thank Craig Ashburn, Daniela Gardea, Matt DeJohnlick, Christine White, Lisa Grant, who has gone on to work elsewhere just recently, and also new to our team is Jenna Rayner. They really do help keep my office going and making sure that we are able to deliver. So, Honourable Speaker, back to talking about my community and about the affordability issue, because when I arrived in Coquitlam in '94, you know, affordability was manageable. We could find enough resource in our capacity to pay for a mortgage and pay for childcare, pay for dental care, do all the things that we want to be able to do when we have a young family. And I know that all members of this House have heard just how difficult it has become. We certainly heard that on the doorstep in the election, for the 2017 election, and because it's becoming so much harder for families over this last decade. It's become so difficult. It's resulted, I have to say, Honourable Speaker, in stressed out families who are concerned about their survivability in my community. Seniors, we're seeing instances of seniors who are being priced out of their rental accommodations. Young people who are unable to move out of their family home. Now, this, Honourable Speaker, reminds me of a family that I came across when I was knocking on doors, and back in 2017, and it was the very last door that I knocked on. And there was a young couple who answered the door. And I asked them some questions about what was important to them and what mattered to them. And their priority was they wanted to be able to save money to get out of their parents' house. It was really important to them to be able to find a way to move forward. And I asked them, I said, so tell me a little bit more about, who you are and your family. And so they said, one of them was a pharmacy assistant, and the other one worked in the medical technology field. And they had finished their education, they were looking to move forward in their life, but they could not move out of his parents' basement. They couldn't figure out how they were going to, on their salaries, make it work. And this has always stayed with me, Honourable Speaker, because we know that the previous government ignored this issue. It's one that's been going on for a very, very long time. And because of the previous government's lack of interest in it, or and maybe it was their choice to not act on it. We're not going to pretend to understand, but they clearly chose not to act to make sure that housing was available for people when they needed it. So I'm really proud of all the three budgets that our government, Honourable Speaker, has brought forward. And Budget 2019 is a continuation of the budget update that we did in 2017 and then that we presented last year in 2019. And again, I have to say, when you take a look at the scope of what we have been able to do in 18 months, I think it's absolutely outstanding, and I'm very proud to stand here and to defend the budget that was presented by the Minister of Finance. Just to remind everyone in the House and to remind British Columbians, in 2017 our government made historic investments not just in transit infrastructure, but also on housing, Honourable Speaker, and in childcare. These three things combined, Honourable Speaker, has been starting to put money in people's pockets. Investments in these key areas mean that people can not only work and participate more fully in the economy, but it means that they can find a place to live, a place to raise their families. And this is, Honourable Speaker, a part of a strong economy that we need. We need it in every urban centre in our province, and we need it in rural British Columbia. Now, I think it's important to remember that people have been asking for these investments for years, and I'm proud that we are able and willing to deliver them. I also think it's important, Honourable Speaker, to recognize that the business sector has been strongly advocating for these investments as well. We've certainly heard from the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade. They were calling on addressing housing affordability. They've been calling on the need for childcare and absolutely the need for investments in public transit. The thing that I think we need to remember, Honourable Speaker, is that when you invest in these things, you actually put money back in people's pockets. And when people have money in their pockets, they can buy more things. They can go out to more restaurants. They can get haircuts. They can also save for the future, Honourable Speaker. And so I have heard from constituents, particularly on the childcare front, about what it means for them when they have an extra $400 or $500 in their pocket because of our investments in childcare. This one family said, "I'm thrilled to have this money because I can do two things with it. One, I can now afford to buy new hockey gear for my son, who keeps outgrowing it, and while I do go to the Kids Sport fundraiser and get used equipment, sometimes I can't find what I need. And now I don't have to figure out how I'm going to pay for new skates or new shoulder pads." The other thing she said where she's putting some of those savings is into an RESP, because she knows that she wants her child to be able to go to post-secondary education, whether it's a trade school or academic setting, and she wants to be able to help her children to thrive and to have those opportunities. And so she feels like a good parent. She feels like she is preparing her children for the future. And that means that she has the confidence that her family will be okay and taken care of. So these are the kinds of things it really means when you invest in people. Now, budgets 2017 and 18 also invested significantly in housing. 2,000 supportive modular homes. About 800 of these homes have opened already, Honourable Speaker. More are opening every week. 1,700 homes that were made more affordable. That was back in 2017. And these too are coming to fruition, Honourable Speaker, and they're making a difference in people's lives. And Budget 2018, it built on that. $7 billion over 10 years in housing. That is the single largest commitment that any government has ever made in this province on housing. And so we're seeing the first of 4,900 homes announced last fall for families and seniors who are falling further and further behind because it's getting harder and harder for them to find the kind of housing they need. We're also, Honourable Speaker, we have an Indigenous Housing Fund, and we are committed, we're the first government committed to support Indigenous people living on reserve and supporting them in their housing because they're British Columbians and they need housing that works for them. So we're committed to working with them, and the first of 1,100 of these homes were announced last fall. Women fleeing violence. This is the first time in 20 years that a call has been put out to communities that government is investing in the families that are affected by violence, making sure that those children and those women have a safe place to call home. And almost 300 of these homes are moving through the development process as we speak. We're investing in additional supportive housing that is building on budget update 2017, an additional 2,500 units of housing over the next 10 years. And I have to say, Honourable Speaker, given the response from local governments and homelessness and housing task groups from around the province, Budget 2019 has added an additional 200 homes just like this, so that all told, Honourable Speaker, we have 4,700 homes for those who are most vulnerable in our province that will be coming online over the next 10 years, with 2,200 of them in the near term, Honourable Speaker. So Budget 2019 is a continuation of this work, recognizing that there is still so much more to do. And life in British Columbia has become unaffordable for most British Columbians. Now, those at the top, Honourable Speaker, under the previous government, they benefited. There was lots of opportunity for them, but many British Columbians certainly got left behind. And so Budget 2019 builds, Honourable Speaker. It builds opportunities for British Columbians, and it introduces the BC Child Opportunity Benefit. Nearly $400 million will be returned to BC families, those families who are raising children, those families who have been saying, it's getting really hard, I can't do it, I have to think about leaving this province. Or it's been creating so much stress, Honourable Speaker, that it's actually destroying families. And so this is a commitment that our government has made, and I'm very proud of that commitment. And when I hear members from the other side say that they're not going to support this budget, then they're not interested in supporting these families who have been struggling for so long. We're providing them with some relief, and they're saying they don't support relief for families. Honourable Speaker, we're also eliminating interest on BC student loans. We're fully eliminating the MSP, saving families as much as $1,800 a year. So again, Honourable Speaker, when I hear members from the other side say they're not supporting this budget, they do not support eliminating the MSP. In fact, if I recall, it doubled under their watch. So again, Honourable Speaker, it's about paying attention to who British Columbians are and what they need. And British Columbians are people trying to raise their family, trying to get ahead, trying to make sure that their kids have the resources they need so that they can fully participate in the economy. People in Coquitlam-Millardville are looking for relief, Honourable Speaker, and this budget provides those families with the relief that they have been desperately looking for. And so when I think about what this means, Honourable Speaker, when they have this money in their pocket, when they have that little bit of extra, I think of the families who want to make sure that their kids get swimming lessons. They want to make sure that their kids and their families get dental care. They want to put away money so that they can purchase a house. They want to be able to send their child to a summer camp, or to take guitar lessons, or gymnastics, or karate lessons. And having that extra money in their pockets means that they will be able to deliver for their children. And when I hear members from the other side say that they're not interested in what this budget brings to the table for British Columbians, it says that they're not interested in supporting those families. So, Honourable Speaker, I want to say a little bit more about what we've been doing, and I want to, particularly in my community, because I think we need to recognize that in Coquitlam, Millardville, we're sort of in between two hospitals, and my community hospital, which is Eagle Ridge Hospital, was announced recently by the Minister of Health that we're finally expanding the emergency department, Honourable Speaker. And I have to say how grateful I am that it also means that the Health Authority doesn't have to sell the land, that we made sure that the hospital is, and the expansion is funded properly and appropriately. And I know that that will bring relief to people in my community. They've been asking for it for years. The foundation has been working on this for years. And I'm very, very proud to be part of a government that is delivering on that kind of health care for the people in my community. Now, I also want to make a couple of comments about the Clean BC. and that our government has made a commitment for over $900 million to put us on a path to a cleaner, brighter, low-carbon future, reducing air pollution and saving families money through the Clean Energy Vehicle Program, incentives for energy-saving home improvements, a net zero building code, and programs to help communities transition to cleaner energy solutions. But I also think it's important, Honourable Speaker, to recognize that in our 2018 budget, where we are investing almost $1 billion into energy retrofits for social housing right across this province to make sure that it's quality housing that will last for another generation, and also reducing GHG emissions is part of this plan. And that's a significant investment in housing that currently exists. I also, Honourable Speaker, want to point out that the largest single transit infrastructure in the Lower Mainland is also contributing to lower GHG emissions. We have 1 million more people coming to the Lower Mainland, and making sure that we have a transit infrastructure that's built out to accommodate that is absolutely critical. Making sure that people get out of their vehicles and having the opportunity to do that in Vancouver and out to Surrey, as well as 900,000 more hours of bus service, so that we can actually reduce congestion, but also reduce our carbon footprint. That's also an investment that our government's making, Honourable Speaker, and I think that's really important to recognize. I also want to just make a few comments about some things that I'm also really proud about, and it seems like members on the other side aren't interested in supporting. And that's our commitment to expand high-speed internet in rural and remote communities throughout BC. That's $50 million. I have been from local government, and I have been the critic for local government, and now I'm the minister responsible for local government. And so in all these years, I've spent a lot of time really wanting to make sure that I understood the challenges of rural and remote British Columbia. I am an urbanite, a suburbanite, and I'm very familiar with that kind of living in an urban environment where we really do take high-speed internet for granted, but it's really a challenge in rural communities, and it's really a challenge in remote communities, and making sure that they have that is absolutely critical to their survival and to their growth. Imagine, Honourable Speaker, you want to take courses, but you can't access the internet because it's just you don't have a high-speed internet connection, and so you can't build an economy, you can't build a business, and you can't get an education. So I think it's absolutely critical that we support that, and I would hope the members on the other side would consider that. I also want to point out, Honourable Speaker, that as a responsive government, we have been listening to communities. And because that's what responsive governments do. And we've been hearing from rural and remote British Columbia that there has been certain challenges, certainly in the Northwest, that the pressures from investments, from private sector investments that are coming to the Northwest are significant. And I stood very proudly with the Premier not too long ago and with a number of mayors from the Northwest as we announced a $100 million Northern Capital and Planning grant that will go to 4 regional districts and their 22 municipalities. And we recognize, Honourable Speaker, that the hardworking people of the Northwest have they absolutely contribute to the prosperity of our province, but the success of that hasn't been poured back into their communities. In fact, Honourable Speaker, Prince Rupert still has wood pipes. And I have to say, the mayor of Kitimat and Terrace, and both of those mayors, were present, and the mayor of Terrace was weepy when we made the announcement, Honourable Speaker, because she kept saying, "You heard us. You heard us. You heard what we've been saying for years, that our capacity to support resource investment as a community is so hard. We don't have the capacity to do that." And so this grant opportunity that gives them the ability to do the planning that they need so that their communities don't struggle under the burden of having to respond to the excitement that comes with resource investment. So I'm very proud of that, Honourable Speaker. I think having a government that is prepared to put a budget together that responds to all of those those needs, those challenges that people have in all parts of the province is something that I know that everybody should be proud of. I know that everybody on this side of the House is very proud of that, very proud of a government that is committed to listening to people and responding to the needs as they describe them. And not just those top 2%, not just those who are, who get the ear at a lobby event, but those who are on the ground doing the work, those who are saying, I worry that my kids will never be able to stay here because I can't afford a home. I worry that I can't get an education because I can't access the internet, and so my ability to move forward in my life is being compromised. Or I'm concerned that my kids won't be able to get the education they need because the interest is going to just add such a burden to them. They're going to be overwhelmed with it. And so we've taken those steps, Honourable Speaker. There's more to do, but I really do want to encourage everybody in this House to support the budget because it's a damn good one. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.